What's up guys, Tommy Bennett here, and today we're gonna get super nerdy with your stance. So in this video, we're gonna help you figure out what are some best ways to get close to the most awesome stance, as well as how do you set up your bindings to make sure that they're as optimal or awesome for you as possible. So we're gonna get into that video today. Let's go.
Oh gosh.
All right guys, so this whole video is gonna be about setting your bindings up before you even go to the mountain. So I got my boy Easy here. Easy has a couple cool tricks and tips for us that is gonna be throughout the video. So if you guys wanna give that guy a follow, please do. All of his stuff is gonna be down in the description below. So the first things first, what we're gonna be diving into is my board does not have bindings on, and what we gotta do is figure out what width of stance do I want, as well as what are the angles that I wanna get into. So Easy has a really easy trick for us. What do you got for me?
Put your board down on a surface where you're not gonna damage your board, and then jump up and down on your snowboard multiple times, looking forwards and switch, pretending you're snowboarding, so that when your feet are landing on the deck, you're landing in that athletic position that feels natural for when you normally would be riding. Jump up and down multiple times, don't look at your feet, look as if you're snowboarding. Then stop, keep your feet right where they are, bend down and mark your feet with tape. 2 pieces of tape, one on the outside of your foot, one on the inside of your foot. So that way you can then move your feet and then put your bindings on, matching the tape lines.
Boom. The other thing that you guys can do is chalk. That can work really well. That's if you're outside, not if you're inside. So after you've jumped around a whole bunch, you've done this exercise to see how wide your stance has got to be, what I want you to do is measure it, go put your bindings on your board, and I want you to do 5 squats. I want you to do 5 nose presses, 5 tail presses, a couple 180s, and I want you to jump around and play as much as you can for about 5 minutes. And what you're looking for is my range of motion up and down limited or pretty free? Am I feel like my rotation is limited or pretty good? Do I feel like my knees are hurting? Does my stance feel a little wide, a little narrow? At the end of the day, when you're trying to figure this out on your own, it does come to preference of, you know, how it feels as well as how much performance you get out of it. But once you've done all that, you got to determine how does it feel. But then you may be asking, okay, sick, but okay, how do I really know? What I'd love for you to do next is try a different stance. Maybe go in a little bit narrow, go in a 1/2 inch on each foot, a little narrow, go a little wider. See what your second stance compares to the first, and does it help you or does it hinder you? And then you can start to dial that in before you get on the hill. Then once you're on the hill, you can dial it in even more. When it comes to bindings, I love rocking the Burton Cartels. I'm a big fan of these. I am rocking the Reflex version, and I've had the last 5 of the same model, and they're just so trustworthy. And the biggest reason I like rocking these bindings is if I'm in Australia, New Zealand, Turkey, Czech Republic, wherever I'm at traveling, I can find replacement parts, and that has been such a lifesaver so many times. But that's really the reason why I like rocking these bindings. So some of the adjustments that I like to do is you can adjust how much angle your toe strap hangs over your toe. So essentially, if it's like a bigger boot or a smaller boot, you can pop this thing down, change it, and change the angle to make sure that your binding is hugging your toe. That's a big deal. But I like to have mine kind of in the front. That's the way I like it. The other thing that I like to do is as I adjust my bindings, I want the toe strap to be in the dead center of my toe, as well as I want my heel strap to be in the center of my toe as I ratchet down. So this is about how much it ratchets. So you can adjust the sides right here, but that's really what I like to do is the toe is in center of the toe and the heel strap is in center of the tongue of the boot. So some of you guys may be asking, do I use forward lean on my bindings? And the answer is no. I try to keep the least amount of forward lean as possible, because what I like to do is as my boot sits right about here, I want a little bit of room for error. So if I lean back just a little bit, it's not gonna immediately have response on the board. Now that comes into play when I'm board sliding on a rail or a box. Well, if I'm a little bit too far back, it's okay because I'm not gonna immediately slip out and fall. But on the other hand, somebody like Ryan Napton, who is an insane snowboarder and it can carve like a boss, He loves the absolute most amount of response possible. So if he barely even leans back, he's gonna get a response, where I just want a little bit more leniency so that I don't fall all the time. But again, these setups comes back to the application that you want. I like a little bit more room for error. On my boots as well, I love to have my boots at about 60% tightness so that I have a little bit of give. I can flex around and tweak my board the way I want to tweak the board. And after doing this for 20 plus years, I have found what I really enjoy. So remember, figure out what your application is and try to find the setup that makes it as awesome as possible and enhances your riding and not just take away from it. So from earlier, the little exercise we did with easy, I determined that my stance was about 20 inches. I know that I like 21.5 inches. So I was able to measure out there. I have a measuring tape. And I'm going to find exactly which bolts I need to set up for my board. So with this Academy snowboard, it has a traditional hole pattern. It is not EST, so you're gonna have to adjust and find different ways to get the micro adjustments that you need. But what I've determined is that my bindings wanna go on this hole and this one, which right here I'm measuring from here to here, and that's gonna give me the 21.5 stance. When you're measuring your stance, you guys wanna make sure you go from the center of your binding to the other center of your binding, and that's how you determine what your width is. Just to make sure we're all on the same page. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the exact holes where I want it to go, that it's gonna allow my board to be a true twin so that I have equal distance of nose and tail. My bindings are in the center while keeping that 21.5 inch stance. Whoop. So depending on what binding company you're using, they may have a 3-degree increment, maybe 2, maybe 4. It just depends on the company. But with these Burton bindings, they are increments of 3. I'm gonna do 5 clicks to get 15 degrees. I'm gonna be a duck foot because I like to ride switch and I like to ride regular a lot. So I'm gonna put my bindings at 15, positive 15, negative 15. And then when I'm screwing these, the bindings to the board, what makes life way easier for me is you start with one screw, put it in, but only put it in a little bit, just enough to get a bite, and then go opposite, kind of an X pattern, do that one, an X pattern to the next, and go back and forth, but do not tighten them all the way down. Trust me, if you tighten 3 screws down, and then the third one doesn't fit, it's probably offset a little bit, so screw all those bolts in just enough, get them tight, and then do that for both bindings. And then step in your bindings, see how do they feel? Do I need to make any more adjustments because it's not feeling right? Once you're feeling pretty awesome, you can definitely tighten them down and then you're good to go. So we've talked a lot about bindings, kind of setting it up and all that kind of stuff, but Easy has a kind of like a quiver of snowboards. Real quick, I want Easy to go through what setup he has and why he's choosing the angles that he's choosing.
So one thing we've talked about in the videos is the way you set up your bindings in relationship to the purpose or the style that you like to ride. I like to ride directional boards because I like to carve. This board is a true twin and the bindings are equal distant from each end of the board. However, my angles are not symmetrical. I like to ride a greater angle on my front foot than I do with my negative angle on my back foot because I used to ride a board like this with hard boots. And I like facing forward because I have been carving for so many years. This board is set up with 63 degrees and 57 degrees. This is a giant slalom racing board. I also like to ride directional boards. So on my powder board, I obviously have a really large nose with a really short tail. And on this board, I actually ride with my back foot a little bit shallower. It's still duck, but not as duck as on my freestyle board. On my split board, this board is really stiff. It's a split board. It's meant for coming apart, so each half is just stiff. Therefore, when it's put together in snowboard mode, this board doesn't maneuver that well in comparison to my other boards. So on this board, I actually ride a narrower stance because when I'm in the backcountry and riding in really unpredictable conditions, I want to be able to turn quicker, and because this board is so big and stiff, on this board I do ride a little bit narrower, about an inch narrower than I do on my traditional boards.
So that is a heck of a quiver. There's 2 reasons why I personally do not have a crazy quiver like this. Reason number 1 is I break my snowboard way too quick. The second reason is I break my snowboard way too quick. So I haven't actually compiled a bunch of snowboards. So big shout out to this freaking setup. let me know what your current setup is down below. Also, what are the applications and what is your binding angles? I want to know more from you guys. Now, if you guys agree, you disagree, also let me know. Give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down. I want to know. And if you guys want to see more content like this, make sure you guys subscribe because I'm going to be putting out techie, nerdy, all sorts of stuff about snowboarding, trying to make you guys as awesome as possible when it comes to snowboarding. Big shout out to Easy, dude. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Let's go. So on that note, guys, you guys are freaking amazing. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. And nothing but love, my dudes. We out.